Well, that's an interesting one. While I was in Trinidad, I noticed that educated people did not like to listen to uneducated people, and that the more educated you seem to be, the more the educated people listened to you. And I became dissatisfied with the fact that the church was not attracting enough intellectuals. And so I decided, you know what, I want to appeal to intellectuals. I therefore need my doctorate. But the problem with that, however, was twofold. One was I did not want a doctorate in psychology only, because psychology has a lot of process but no real content. I did not want a doctorate in theology only, because theology had philosophical content but no process. So I decided I wanted a doctorate in both of those. That was the first decision I made. Well, the church had a policy that they could only give a bursary to the university to do doctorates if you were planning to go back to teach at the college. I did not want to teach at the college full time at the time, and the church headquarters did not like the idea of my leaving winning the souls to do full time teaching. And so there was no way for them to give me the bursary. At the same time, however, I used to come up to Oakwood College every now and then to give some lectures to the ministerial students. And the president called me one day and said to me, listen, Wiggins, you know, if you decide to come and teach here full time, we will send you to Vanderbilt to get your doctorate. I went back to the Caribbean and told my bosses what Oakwood said, and they said, no, we cannot afford to lose you. So stay here, we'll send you for the doctorate. Well, I wrote Andrews University and told them that I wanted to do a doctorate that combined theology and psychology. And they said there's no such doctorate, I must do one or the other. I wrote back and I said, you have a department of theology, you have a department of psychology, combine them, make up the degree. They said, we cannot do that. I said, okay. So then I wrote 6 other universities, top universities, Harvard, Yale, Chicago. And they sat back and told me the same thing. There's no such degree. You must either do psychology or theology. I wrote back and said, you have a department of theology, department of psychology, make up the degree. They said, okay, come. Then I wrote Andrews University and said, they said they can do it. Are you inferior to them? And they said, no, come. And so that is how I was able to work out that kind of degree. At the same time now, however, the union, the top part of the church in the Caribbean, had a problem with how to get me to the university on a bursary, despite what the policy said. Well, I happened to be aware when the committee voted it, so when I came back and saw the minutes, I had to laugh, because the minutes said, voted to give Cass Wiggins a doctoral bursary to Andrews University, voted that the union pays the college's portion. So that allowed them to say, you're going on a college bursary, but the college had no real claim on me because the union was going to pay the college's portion. They found a way around it. Once again, people can find a way around anything they really want to do. That's a very important principle. Well, that's how I got to Andrews University. Now, the truth is, by the time I got there, though, I was a little tired, and so I was sort of hiding out. I did not want people to know who I really was. And it worked for about 4 or 5 weeks. And then the General Conference had a big meeting at Andrews University about how to win souls. And the General Conference Vice President came to me and said to me, Kim, nobody here knows what I'm talking about. Please come and tell them how to win souls. So I went and conducted a seminar for the people. They had them from all over the United States and overseas. But after I did that, my stay at Andrews on weekends came to an end. I began getting calls every weekend to preach this place and conduct meetings for the ministers. And it was such an interesting thing. I was in Miami one weekend, and Pastor Withers, who happened to be the Caribbean man at the time, was traveling through the United States, and he saw me there. And the following weekend, I happened to be in California, and he was there. And the following weekend, I was in Chicago, and he was there. He said to me, "Are you sure you're in school?" Because I did so much traveling. At one point, they even sent a plane to Andrews campus to pick me up for Georgia, because I told them I was fed up with going to the airport. And so what that did, though, was to make a lot of people in the United States know me, a lot of the ministers and presidents and so on. And so every year, while I was back in the Caribbean, 2 or 3 times a year, they was sent to me to conduct workshops for ministers up here, especially in evangelism. And one year, the union on the East Coast, I'm trying to remember the name of that union now. As I get older, my memory slips sometimes for those things. But they sent for me to conduct a workshop for the ministers. Well, they were so pleased about it that they asked me to come back the following year. And they wrote every conference in the United States and said to them, "Send a delegate to hear Wiggins." And so that's what happened. And the evangelist for Texas conference happened to be among them who came up there to hear me. And he came back and said to the president here, at the time it was Cyril Miller, "Send for Wiggins for camp meeting." And so that's what happened. He sent for me for camp meeting. I preached every night. In those days, the camp meeting was 10 days. And during the day, we conduct meetings for ministers. At the same time, I was impressed with the college. And I remember that you, Chris, you wanted to come up here to do computer science. And you were thinking of going to Oakwood. I was very impressed with what I saw here, though, in computer science. And I looked at the bulletin, I liked it, and I said to myself, you know, I better take this so Chris would see it. In the back of my mind also was the idea that if Christopher is going to come to the United States to school, I probably need to come to the United States to work for American money, because in Trinidad, where I was, it took $6 Trinidad to make $1 US. So if they sent me a bill for $1,000 for Chris, I would have to find $6,000 up here. So I was looking to see if there's a place up here I could come to work, if Chris came here. While thinking that, the people here were so excited about what I was doing here, that on the last day, the president said to the audience, "How many would like him to come back here permanently?" And they gave me a standing ovation. And so they met next day in a committee and sent a call for me to come to the United States. By the time I got back to Trinidad and gave Christopher the bulletin, I saw him looking through it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. And he said, "Daddy, I think I want to go here." And I said, "Well, that's an interesting coincidence, because you want to go to school in Texas, and they want me to work in Texas. That's a good coincidence." And Christopher and Peter were always extremely close. And so I overheard Peter say, "Okay, if Chris is going, I'm going too." And so I brought them up. And the coincidence of their wanting to come to this school and Texas conference wanted me to work in Texas became a very good coincidence. And I am so glad that I came to Texas.